Now, you may have been captured from these two videos, from all the information to your eyes being appeased. But there's a lot of speculation going on within all this information. You have to apply empirical science to fill in many of the gaps within these ideas and questions. When it comes to answering the big question about life, science has quickened to search for answers and have filled in the gaps that can't quite be answered within the factual facts. So we can only find ourselves pondering on theories and imaginations. While testable facts are complemented with empirical science, we have to question, what are the facts and not the facts within collectively building models of understanding things all around us? Well, we have theories that build to be unsure resting stops for facts. But before I go any further, we need to know, what is science? Science is observable and testable, and it can be repeated over and over again, and it still has the same outcome and conclusions. Straight up. That'll be it. That's science. Those two factors. So now we know what science is. As science, we cannot speculate and call it scientific facts unless you can observe it and test it and then again repeat it. Anything outside of these two scientific methods, you're falling into the unscientific voodoo land. Like people saying, you don't have any proof of God. Well, science can't prove much if they insert assumptions and speculation onto facts. So within the first video, we get a fast glimpse of the Earth's formation. That it rains for millions of years after it takes few millions of years of Earth forming and cooling, and then to create oceans of primordial soup. This is when science says where the first life comes from. This is where one of the many problems come into play with an argument over macro and micro evolution. Macro, on the surface, within reading and understanding really what macro is, science applies the appearance that macro came first, then came along micro. Which ultimately, it's said from evolution that macro needs millions of years to produce micro. So, let's look a little bit more into this. If in fact we can measure out that macro came first, how could it evolve into micro? Research on how life first arose from inanimate matter is an example of historic science at its worst. There is absolutely no way to verify any hypothesis that attempts to explain how the first living thing came about in a purely naturalistic way. Some evolutionary biologists try to separate the origin of life issue from evolutionary biology. The problem with this is that evolutionary science has a commitment to naturalism. All phenomena must be explained using only natural laws. Since the appearance of life on Earth is a phenomenon that occurred, it must be explained naturally. Must follow an evolutionary chain from one organism living today back to the beginning of the universe. For them, complex animals came from simple animals, which came from simpler organisms, which came from the chemicals, which came from stardust. If one of these pieces is missing, evolutionary thinking loses its foundation. Naturalistic scientists often talk about evolution in more than one common biological sense. Chemical, organic evolution, and the evolution of the universe from the Big Bang often appear in biology textbooks despite attempts to separate the two issues. What if a scientist could make a simple organism by combining chemicals in a lab? It would only prove that intelligent actions make life, not that life arose spontaneously. billions of years ago. There has never been an instant where information has been shown to arise from matter. Matter form complex patterns such as crystals. But there is no information contained in such patterns in order for life to continue and organisms to replicate. Information must be present to pass to the offspring. The ultimate question that evolution must be able to answer is, how did the information seem to come? From one living thing arose from matter. So how can these living DNA, highly genetic, complicated, computed structures come over time from matter? When we think of information in biology, we're mainly talking about DNA and RNA. DNA and RNA use information that is present in a DNA code to send and receive messages that are intended to produce proteins and continue to the existence of the species. When we define information as followed: information, an encoded, symbolically represented message conveying expected action, intended purpose. Intended purpose. It has to have a purpose. Just no purpose. One of the pioneer ideas in organic evolution was a primordial soup. Kind of thirsty. According to this model, at some point in Earth history, the molten Earth cooled and oceans formed. As rain fell, chemicals in a hypothetical pool warmed by volcano activity and energized by lightning, organized into proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates. These molecules then organize into cellular structure. Like proteins, DNA, and cell membranes, the problem with this scenario is that chemistry prohibits it. It prohibits it. Meaning can't do it. So, proteins do not form from piles of amino acids. DNA contains a specific code that must be copied from another strand of DNA. Proteins cannot form in water because the water breaks the bonds that hold the amino acid together. Sounds right. A process called hydrolysis. Only if I can make the camera go in and out, right? That would be pretty cool. One of the most famous experiments done in the primordial soup model was performed by Stanley Miller. Miller's experiment is featured in virtually every textbook as proof that life could have came from matter. The majority of flaws in Miller's experiment are rarely communicated to readers, and few scientists believe that scenario is accurate. Many other models have popped up in the decades since, but none produced any more evidence than Miller's failed explanation. So, with that said, not many people know. Oh, hold on. So what came first, chicken or egg? So in a lot of scenarios, we could probably ask that question in multiple contexts, and millions of years we can look back at things. So, not a lot of people know, we have termites. What? We have termites? Yes, we do. But hey, here's a complex scenario of termites. Termites are just a little bit more than saying termites and they just eat wood. It's a little bit more complex, all right? This is going to be where the chicken and egg is going to come into play. So, we have the termite, but there are something that's called protozoa that's actually in their stomach. They're microorganisms, and they live and feed in their stomach. A lot of people think, well, termites just eat wood, and that's their food, and they digest, and little poops come out. But no, it's not that easy. See, you can look back in any source you want, National Geographic, anything, textbooks, look deep into it, it's true. So, here's a kicker. termites do not digest wood. They can't. They will die. These microorganisms actually live in their stomach. These little, yes, bugs inside of a bug eats the wood and digests for them. So what came first, chicken or egg? What came first? These bugs in their stomach are actually the bug termite. Okay, so I came along an article to help riddle this out. So let's find out the answer. Just as macro came to micro, so you need matter over millions of years to form into DNA, RNA, and all the other complex, intelligent. Oh, I'm sorry, I got stuck there. So let's get to the point. Science Daily. All right, so if anyone is curious, I can also put the link on the comment so you can actually look at the credentials yourself. Science Daily had published in May 15th, 2009. The source was Oregon State University. The summary of this is the analysis of the termite entombed for 100 million years in an ancient piece of ember has revealed the oldest example of mutationalism ever discovered between an animal and microorganisms. It also shows the unusual biology that helps make this one of the most successful, although frequently despised insect group in the world. So we come down to this article. Okay, so I'm going to probably tear this guy's name up, but it's George Paunair. Well, his findings from, like I said, the Oregon State University research and international expert on life forms found in ember. So this guy's an expert what he does. So if we read more, this ember actually gave the opportunity for the biology of this ancient insect to be revealed in a way that would otherwise have been impossible. Therefore, we look back at modern to old, and we're going to compare, because they're saying otherwise it's impossible if it wasn't for this ember and this termite that was actually cased and sealed in this timber, we wouldn't be able to look back. Millions of years. Okay, out of its wondered adamant spilled a range of protozoa, which ever even then were provided a key function for the termite. They helped it to digest wood. So those protozoa actually helped microorganisms help them digest the wood, as he revealed. Between animals and microorganisms, this is the earliest example of ever discovered for mutationalism. So then we go down a little bit more. Somewhere on the evolutionary scale, the termite began producing a liquid it produced, that contained protozoa that they would excrete. The termite that excreted out this liquid that had these termites, these things in their stomach, the mom would puke. So essentially, it says that the babies would then eat these feces and digest the liquid, and these magical bugs that were in a bug for a baby bug to digest. So these bugs can be the baby bugs, and etc. So I have no problem putting a link up. You can actually read. Just put underneath the comment of this video, hey, can you send me that article that was published from Science Daily? I'll do so. So here's the problem. He put up here that if it wasn't for this ember being found and finding this termite that was encased in this little nice little neat little rocket, actually this little timber, it's so little pretty and stuff, you can see right through it, that would be impossible to determine an understanding of the ancient compared to modern day termites. And I'm telling you, I don't get it. I don't know how this creates any type of revelations that you just like fathom that we're just going to learn something anymore that we didn't, because technically we really haven't. You still come across a problem where you still have the egg and the chicken problem. So you have a termite and then you have a bug in there. So how did the bug get inside the bug? You still haven't said that, other than you just popped open the abdomen and a whole bunch of these protozoa popped out. You're not saying exactly anything more than what you have concluded. Nor do we even have proof to say that they created some type of mutation to get to this point, that maybe they were eating maybe meats or plants. We don't have any proof of any of that. We can only suggest. There goes speculation. Speculation of mutations over generations, over thousands of billions of years for one species. We have no proof of that. We're just going to say. But he doesn't conclude that. But then again, his article only concludes what we know now. But still, what came first? These bugs inside of termites or the termites? Because if the termites have to live off wood, because they somewhat break down some type of food within the wood, but the actual wood itself is actually ate up and excreted by these bugs in the stomach. So, I'm confused. You still got the chicken and egg. Let's go on. So we can move on to micro, which somehow forms again from micro. You know what? I messed up right there. Let's continue. Okay. But furthermore, it is taught to be that macro came first and then micro. But how can this be true? Because there are so many implications to this idea. Science proclaims life did start with macro, not micro. That micro came later in evolution. But macro is matter, essentially. Now, matter does have variations within shapes, but matter still remains matter. The problem continues to be embedded issue within macro, because when matter is tested in a naturalistic laboratory, scientists find that matter still is matter, and no matter how you test it, it will never be conscious enough to create DNA or RNA. But according to evolutionists, you need millions of years for non-particle or naturalistic states of matter to turn into something living.
Why am I an atheist? Because there is no God.
Atheism assumes that you can disprove the existence of a God. Agnostic is a more correct term, but I'm an atheist.
Are you an atheist?
Yeah.
I am an atheist, yeah.
I am, yes.
I am.
So you're not an atheist?
No, I'm not.
So you're leaning that way because of evolution?
Yeah.
I don't believe in there's a guy in the sky that lives in the sky.
You believe in evolution?
Of course I do, yes.
Live science says of Darwinian evolution, it can turn dinosaurs into birds, apes into humans, and amphibious mammals into whales.
What Darwin showed in his work on evolution and natural selection is that we don't need to invoke any supernatural force or power to account for the development of life through time on Earth.
The ongoing processes that are observable in today's world.
Do you think it's a belief?
I think it's just fact.
I think more like facts. There is too much evidence to ignore.
Do you think it's a belief?
No, it's science.
It's the way it happened.
It's logical.
You know, all the scientists pretty much agree with it. It's more of a fact.
When did you start to believe?
When I started to think for myself.
When did you start believing?
When I took my first biology class.
It all started to make a lot of sense. The teacher made it very, very easy to understand. I generally trust the scientific community. It makes more sense than any religion or anything. The fossils they found of all the cavemen, the Homo sapiens, the dinosaurs, it shows clear evidence.
I believe in science.
What's your major here at this university?
Biology.
Your biology major?
Yeah.
You believe in evolution?
Yes.
What's your major?
Geology.
Chemistry?
Biochemistry. Environmental science and policy. I'm a physicist.
Biochemistry.
Hey, do you believe in evolution?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe in evolution?
Yes, I do. Of course.
Yes, I do.
I do believe in evolution.
You believe in evolution?
Yes.
Are you a strong believer?
Yes.
Are you a strong believer?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
A scientific method is based on the collection of data through observation and experimentation. Science Daily.
Could you give me some observable evidence that evolution is true. Something I don't have to receive by faith.
Yeah.
Some observable evidence.
I mean, take a look at what happened 65 million years ago.
Hang on, I can't. That's 65 million years ago.
I believe, millions of years.
So that can't be observed.
We can trace the evolution through the fossil record.
Would you be specific? Just give me one.
Between 6 and 7 million years ago.
Hundreds of thousands to millions of years?
So it's quite a long time.
Yes.
Millions of years.
Yes.
So it can't be observed.
Evolution is not testable over time.
We are condemned to live only for a few decades, and that's too slow, too small a time scale to see evolution going on. Richard Dawkins. We see nothing of these slow changes in progress until the hand of time has marked the lapse of ages. Charles Darwin.
You've got the canine kind, the coyote, and the domestic dog, and there's the feline kind, which is the cats, the tiger and the kitten, and you've got humankind. So Darwin said there'd be a change of kinds over many years. So could you give me one example of observable evidence of a change of kinds?
So, for instance, the fossil record shows the common ancestors of all carnivores, that cats and dogs were once linked, once united by a common ancestor.
How long ago?
This, I believe, was like 60 million years ago.
I don't want something I have to accept by faith. I want it to be observable.
Observable evidence. Well, I mean, if you're just asking me here on the street, there's not really much I can tell you in terms of observable evidence. Like, we would have to really examine existing data to draw conclusions of our own.
I would have to have faith then.
We would have to have some amount of faith.
Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution where he said there'd be a change of kinds?
Monkey to man, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, a change of kinds.
I don't really believe there's any proof for that yet.
Well, monkeys are the only ones with the 5th digit, like we have.
Well, koalas have a 5th digit. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Think we're evolved from koalas?
No.
When I went to, like, Washington, D.C., I saw they had a whole exhibit just on the...
In the Smithsonian?
Yeah, in the
Oh,
Smithsonian.
wait, so that is just like some stuffed dummies, like standing around a fire.
I know that everyone talks about the missing link for humans and whatnot. I believe that there are connections that are out there that we haven't found yet.
I'm going to trust what those experts did. Those experts came up with.
I have a strong trust in evolutionary ideas based on the evidence presented.
Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds?
I haven't seen it myself, but I believe what the textbooks tell me about it, so...
You've got faith in the experts?
I have faith in the experts, yeah. I guess similar to how religious people have faith that God actually exists, I have faith in the experts knowing what they're talking about.
The scientific method must be observable and repeatable. So could you give me one piece of observable evidence for Darwinian evolution?
Okay, I would point to, as one great example is look at the genetics of the stickleback.
What's that?
So stickleback fish are a very interesting collection of species that were recently isolated after the end of the Ice Age.
What did they become?
They're various species of sticklebacks.
They stayed as fish?
Well, of course.
Can you think of any observable evidence where there was a change of kinds?
Fish.
Human beings are still fish.
Human beings are fish?
Why, yes, of course they are.
How long did that take?
A couple billions of years, millions.
A couple of millions? How is that observable?
It's not.
We came out of the ground as a mammal, and one mammal created...
Come out of the ground? Didn't we come out of the sea?
Huh? Well, initially in the beginning, we came out of the ground and the sea. After the great destruction of the...
So did we have lungs or gills when we came out of the sea?
You want to know something? Those that were in the sea, I guess, had gills, and those that were on land had lungs.
But if we came out of the sea, we had gills in the sea.
You want to know something? Who knows that we came out of the sea or we evolved from mammals?
So you don't know?
Huh? Of course I don't know.
I'm accepting that they did their science correctly.
Could you give me an example of Darwinian evolution, not adaptation or speciation, but a change of kinds?
These are changes of kinds.
They're still fish.
They're distinctly different fish.
We have thousands of examples.
Can you give me one?
I can give you thousands.
Just one.
For instance, I would say look at Lenski's experiments with bacteria then.
So what did the bacteria become?
The bacteria are still bacteria, of course.
So that's not Darwinian evolution. That's not a change of kinds, is it?
It is a change. It is a change in the genetic makeup of the bacteria, which is
still bacteria. So what did the bacteria become?
A new kind of bacterium.
So it's still bacteria. There's no change of kinds. To summarize, the observable evidence that you give me for Darwinian evolution is bacteria, becoming bacteria.
No, it is bacteria acquiring new metabolic capabilities.
You said before that there is lots of evidence for evolution. I just want one observable evidence for Darwinian evolution, just one.
But I gave you some. You don't want...
Not some, I want one.
Wait, you don't want that.
I want one. Yes, I do. I'm pleading with you.
You asked me to tell you when I've watched one species evolve into another. Isn't that right?
No, one kind into another. There's 14 different definitions of species. So I want a change of kind.
When you're talking about kinds or change in families, you're actually talking about macroevolution. You're talking about changes on the level that separate, say, cats from dogs.
So could you give me any examples of Darwinian evolution?
Well, when you say examples of that, then you have to sort of look at over a longer time frame.
It has nothing to do with faith. Faith is something that I have to, unseen, I have to believe in.
That's it, unseen. Look, do you believe evolution?
Of course I do.
Are you a believer in evolution?
Yes, I am.
When did you start to believe evolution?
I started to believe evolution when I started to think out for myself.
Is evolution a belief?
Well, you know something, evolution is a thought process. This is coming to terms and checking out all the alternatives, like taking a look at the religion, man-made religions.
Let me ask you again, is evolution a belief?
No, evolution is, well, yeah, in a word, yeah, I could say it could be a belief.
When you say change of kind, you mean the evolution of one species from another or to another? Yes, we have that in action actually in the Galapagos.
Could you give me one instance?
Yes, we have an example from a group of birds called Darwin's finches.
You take a look at the difference between the finches on the islands that all started out. I mean, that's very, very observable.
But that's not Darwinian evolution. There's been no change of kinds. What did the finches become?
They become genetically new and anatomically new, recognizably different species.
So they're still finches?
Well, of course, they're still finches, yes.
There's no change of kind.
Little birds that he had observed.
What did they become?
Their beak shapes.
They're still birds.
Yes.
3 finches that turn into different types of birds.
They're still finches.
Well, for example, Darwin and his study on evolution of the birds on the island that he went on to there.
Their beaks changed?
Their beaks.
They're still birds. There's no change of kinds. That's within the kind.
It's evolution on the beaks.
So that's called adaptation. It's not Darwinian evolution. There's no change of kinds. There's no different animal involved. I want something that shows me Darwin's belief in a change of kinds is scientific. Darwin spoke of a change of kind. Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution where there's a change of kind?
Change of kind. I'm gonna have to think about that one a little longer.
You give me anything that I can see, observe, and test, which is a scientific method for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds.
Test and observe.
Could you give me observable evidence, which is the scientific method for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds?
Okay, I gotta think about it. So you want the evidence of it?
I would say
I cannot, I think. It's a hard question, actually. Mitochondrial DNA. So, can you repeat the question again?
Could you give me any observable evidence, just one, for Darwinian evolution?
Let me think about that for a sec.
Observable evidence, something where we don't have to exercise faith. Something that can be observed, like the scientific process, observable.
That's a good question. That one I'm not quite sure.
So you can't think of any observable evidence for evolution?
No.
How do you know it's true?
I'm not sure.
So Darwinian evolution is not observable, it's not scientific.
I guess so.
So it's unscientific, you can't prove it.
It's scientific, actually. You could prove it. It could be proven, just...
Do it for me.
That's hard. That's just too broad of a...
It's unobservable, that's why you need millions of years.
Yes, exactly.
You're trusting the biology majors and the biology professors know what they're talking about, and they can't even give me evidence of a change of kinds.
Well, then there isn't one. If they don't give it, then I wouldn't say there was.
Yeah. I just go on what I've seen and what I've learned from class.
So you believe?
Yeah.
You know what that's called?
What?
Blind faith.
Blind faith.
Now, microevolution is understood within our day-to-day lives. We see it everywhere. We even do scientific studies on it in the laboratories, where we observe it, can test it, and retest it. We will always come out with the same conclusions. That dogs will produce dogs and humans will produce humans. We can also see this evidence with Darwin's finches, as we have learned, watched in the last little short video. Darwin has done great work within science when it has come to microevolution. He has shown different evolutionary processes of finches, especially other parts of wildlife. In regards of adaptations, the birds do change over time, but they still remain birds. And scientists will say that micro has to take thousands to millions of years. For example, going back to the primordial pool, it rained for millions of years for matter to create DNA and RNA. And amino acids. But I already went over how there's no proof, just a leap of faith, and showed that biological difficulties for that to take place. Now, we may have certain levels of chromosomes that match many other animals like apes. But observing characteristics throughout life just shows design. We follow within empirical science when we conclude facts and then continue to stretch things out that may or appear the same, then apply these ideas to be a well-rounded fact. As majority of students understand that the teacher is teaching, that this is all proof rather than is near speculation. With facts, we have to apply a story to fill in the missing questions, where there are still assumptions, not scientific facts. We have to use the scientific method of observation and testing and retesting to say we scientifically conclude it's a fact. Fact. You can't test modern apes, then test our DNA and say they are our cousins. No. I condemn you to be cousins of the ancient apes, which the modern apes are irrelevant. They lost it. Then through many assumptions with throwing in ancient bones from apes and say, here's our proof. DNA, proof. Bones, ancient bones to modern bones, proof. Hey, did you also know whales, within their fins, they have a bone structure. Same bone structure that of humans. You know what? A fish. Okay, never mind. That don't even make sense. Okay. Alright, this is assumptions and imagination with comparing our DNA to that of modern apes. Oh wait. You can't do that because the X's and Y's and chromosomes, it just don't make sense. You know what? It don't matter.
Dear Science, if evolution is ongoing and species are always changing and adapting, shouldn't we see new human-like species evolving from apes?
Hi, I'm Sarah Kaplan, and I'll be answering for Science today. A few weeks ago, we got a question asking why chimpanzees and gorillas aren't evolving to be more like humans. The answer is relatively simple. Chimpanzees aren't our ancestors. They're more like our cousins, with whom we share a common ancestor. And there's no reason to expect that your cousin's children would look more like you. But this answer seemed to beget even more questions about how evolution works, so let's go through them. Dear Science, where are the transitional forms? Why don't we see evidence of a half-human, half-ape? First, a point of order. Technically, you yourself are 100% ape. Homo sapiens is a species of ape. Now, about transitional forms, which are organisms that show some traits common to the ancestral group and some common to their descendants. We find more evidence of them all the time. There's Ardi, the Ardipithecus ramidus skeleton found in eastern Africa, and there's also Lucy, an Australopithecus afarensis skeleton found in the same region. But those are such rare discoveries, why aren't there more fossils? Well, over millions of years, animals can disturb remains, bacteria can break them down, floods can wash them away, and earthquakes can shake them out of their geological context. But the scientists who study evolution have more than enough evidence to feel confident that they're right. Dear Science, why have we humans stopped evolving physically? But we haven't. Just a few thousand years ago, most adult humans couldn't tolerate drinking milk. Now about half of us are lactose tolerant. Thanks, cheese. There are also studies showing genetic adaptations to low oxygen in people who live at high altitudes. Dear Science, how does evolution explain the origins of life? This is a tricky one. Our best guess is that life started out as strings of RNA that were able to replicate themselves. Over time, those molecules mutated so they could assemble proteins, store genetic information, and build walls around themselves. Eventually, the first single-celled organisms emerged. There are still a lot of questions about this hypothesis, but that's okay. It's what makes science so much fun. I'm Sarah Kaplan, and this is Dear Science.
Anthropologists and evolutionists will always find ways to make reasoning on how we are descendants of apes. By comparing human DNA to that of modern apes, all the way to the primordial pool where we come from, matter. Then to go a step more farther with adding, which makes the rabbit hole a little bit more deeper and crazier, that the modern apes have lost certain DNA coding of assuming that ancient apes had created us over evolutionary time, which they did have the chromosome, but modern apes do not have it because they lost it over evolutionary time. What a convenience! Dang, that's convenient. Man. So let me get this straight. Alright, it started with lower apes. Then it moved up over the evolutionary time scale with chromosomes that were lost over thousands and thousands of years. Then came along hominids to Homo sapiens, or humans. And now that humans have evolved from the ape family, but only by our near cousins. Second cousins, first cousins, switch that around. I'm lost. That's confusing. I guess 1 or 2 many thousand-year cousins? I don't even know. I can't do that. Well, apes are still here. Right? Anyone agree? Oh, no one's here. So, they still have... Okay. Here, 1,000 millions, 2018 could be 19. So they haven't died out. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the math. I'm not very good at math. 19 million for... They still haven't died out. They're still here. No? Oh. I thought we started with the lower apes. Then ancient apes, lower apes. Lower apes rose up to the smarter apes. Smarter apes, humans. humans recycle backwards, go back. Modern apes, they're still here. So they lost the chromosomes, but they're here, but we're here. We have XY, have sex. Oh, my bad. Hold on. I'm making it way too difficult more than really what it is. I think what it is, I still wanted to hang out around us. Yeah, I just wanted to still hang around. My bad. We lost our tail. Although if we had a tail, it would be amazing. Because we all know how it is going to Walmart, getting all those groceries in the car. We're like, look, man, look, if we could fill both of our arms up, right, we don't even need our kids around. We can just whip our tail around our heads, open up the door with their tail, and we go. I mean, who wouldn't want to open up the refrigerator while grabbing a milk cup, and then we can swoop our tail, hit the door shut. Or, better yet, parents, we know we would love a tail, alright? Who would want to lose a tail and leave our coccyx by itself, which they say, well, our coccyx the way that it is, because we lost a tail. Well, damn. I would want a tail, because you can imagine your kids running away from you. You can swoop and grab their tail, because you know catching that arm is like, their arm actually legitly goes inside their chest cavity and comes back out. Do you imagine that? When you try to reach for your kids, it's like a long reach. It's like more closer you get to that shoulder goes inward. It's like they lose it. It's like, where'd that shoulder go? And somehow they just speed away. But that tail would give you so many more inches to stop. Grab that tail with their ass there. Amazing, right? Don't you agree? Yes, she agrees. But that would be awesome. We lost our tail, disposable tail. Took that out the window. We're evolving. We humans don't need it. I mean, that's a lie. So they infer that we came from the cousins of modern apes. They say modern apes and humans have chromosomes that match up around 100%. They're going to round it. So I think it's more of a 96, 97. Who would want that, right? We just miles around that baby, I'll end up doing 100. But then they add that they lost certain DNA coding, so then to speculate that the ancient apes did have the DNA coding that made us. This is empirical science. It would be more scientific to have the cousin of modern apes to compare the DNA to have more accuracy to the bones, maybe? Oh, wait a minute, we can't do that. We can't go way back thousands of years to get their DNA. But again, design is a heck of a flip. You know, I really think God maybe threw design in there just a little, switch you up a little bit. Who knows, right? So, anyways, empirical science. I've said empirical science many times already through the drooling time of lecture. So what's empirical science? Alright, cool, let's just get to the point. So empirical science. So you walk into the room with the burning candle. Wow, burning candle. How long has that candle been burning? We do not know. We walked in there, we look around, we inquire. We cannot find a fact of why that candle is laying for how long is the most important. That is X. X is to find out how long it's been burning. So, okay, cool. Let's grab a 12-inch ruler. We're going to do some math to this. We're going to do some empirical math. So I got my ruler. My ruler's 12 inches, so I put it up against the candle. I measured 12 inches. So I sit here and I'm going to watch the burning of it. And we're going to do the rate of burn an hour. So every hour, the rate of burn goes about an inch. Let's put that right. So the rate of burn it burns, yeah, wait a minute. This thing can't be too difficult because we only have like 2 issues that we have to figure out. We got the X. Wait a minute. I'm making it way more harder. So let's go again. The 12-inch ruler is up against the candle measuring 7 inches. The rate of burn per hour is an inch. So I got an inch that will burn every hour. And I got 7 inches. So how can I figure out how tall was that candle when it started burning? 7 inches when I walked in the room. Wasn't in the room when I lit the candle. The rate of burn is an inch per hour. I'm gonna say it. Yeah, it was 13 inches. Yeah. I figured it out. Although that is assumptions. That is assuming that maybe it was, but maybe it was 9 or 10 inches. Maybe it only was burning for a few hours, but maybe it was burning for 6 or 10 hours.
Evolution means that something has become something from something else, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, if we're from apes, why are the apes still here?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
If we evolved
They were
from
different sort of
apes, they would have died off.
People often ask me, if we're descended from chimpanzees, how come there are still chimpanzees? Well, we're not descended from chimpanzees. We're both descended from a common ancestor who lived there about 6 million years ago. That common ancestor then produced 2 branches, one of which went to us humans, and one of which went to chimpanzees, branching further to produce bonobos and common chimpanzees. We are all cousins. We are not descended from chimpanzees. More distantly related are gorillas. They share a common ancestor with both us and chimpanzees. That's the common ancestor between gorillas and humans and chimps. So humans and chimps are a natural group which are related to gorillas, cousins of gorillas, and all of those animals, which are all African apes. The African apes are gorillas, humans, bonobos, and chimpanzees. All the African apes have a common ancestor with orangutans. That's the common ancestor with orangutans. Those are all the great apes. So the great apes are all cousins. Within the great apes, the African apes are closer cousins. Within the African apes, humans, bonobos, and chimps are closer cousins still. And within them, bonobos and chimpanzees are the closest cousins of all.
Tell my people it's time to stop believing bullshit. Just because a motherfucker tell you bullshit with a straight look on their face. We too old, we too smart, we too motherfucking good to believe shit don't make no fucking sense. You too old to be believing in evolution with your stupid motherfucking ass. Evolution say people came from monkeys. And the question is, why is there still monkeys, you dumb motherfucker, you? Is these the retarded monkeys? They didn't turn into people just yet. Get your stupid ass the fuck out of here. Finna be 2012. And you better believe something. Don't nobody give a fuck what you believe. You better believe something.